The morning tide bore Daenerys Targaryen's fleet toward the ochre bluffs of the Broken Arm. The crimson sun of Dorne, glowing upon sun-bleached sails, stitched with a three-headed dragon. Sea spray mingled with desert dust on the warm wind, a scent both briny and earthen, as though the sea itself had chosen to taste the scorched kingdom she was about to claim as her first foothold. Daenerys stood at the prow of the Windblown, its carved dragon figurehead slicing the shallows like a spear of obsidian. Silver-gold hair swept behind her in ribbons, salt crystals clinging to the strands. She wore riding leathers dyed the deep indigo of Qarth, trimmed with pale sand-crawler hide gifted by the red-waist nomads, a garb practical for heat, yet cut to command. Beside her, the great black shadow of Drogon circled overhead, his wings eclipsing the dawn, while Rhaegal and Viserion glided farther out, scouts of ash and jade and cream tracing lazy spirals above the yawning dunes beyond the cove. "I thought we would see Dragonstone's basalt cliffs by now," Tyrion Lannister murmured, his voice half lost in the surf, half lost in reflection. The hand's hair had grown longer on the voyage, salt-touched curls brushing the shoulders of a linen doublet more wrinkled than regal. Yet his mismatched eyes gleamed with sharp amusement at their shared deception. Imagine Cersei's face when her ravens bring word that the Dragon Queen has landed 2,000 leagues south of the Stormlands. Daenerys watched faint silhouettes gather on the distant headland, spearmen cloaked in orange and red, scorpions angled seaward, banners bearing a sun pierced by a spear. The Martell sigil. Let her imagine. Let every lord in Westeros imagine. Confusion is a weapon. She pivoted, the gilded dragon brooch at her collar catching the light. But even weapons must be tempered. "We are guests here until Prince Doran grants us leave to be more." Grey Worm approached, helm tucked beneath his arm, island sunlight gilding the scar at his cheek. "My queen, scouts report shallow reefs to port. Safe landing is the lagoon." His unsullied behind him stood in rigid formations upon the deck, shields bright as hammered mirrors, spears steady despite the bucking tide. "Take us into the lagoon," she ordered. "Signal the other captains." A series of sharp whistles cut across the flotilla. Ships bearing the Kraken of the Ironborn flanked left. Those gifted by the city-states of Slaver's Bay, repainted red and black, glided behind. Farther aft, great boxy hulls held Dothraki horses, unsettled by the swells, their wickers carrying faintly over water. The lagoon at Plankytown spread before them like a mirror of hammered copper, reeds bending where fresh water met brine. The rivers Greenblood and Vaeth braided through the delta, their banks teeming with sandbars and fisher huts on stilts. On the highest spit of land stood a sparse knot of Dornish spearmen. They wore light linen hauberks, cinched with copper rings, faces draped in scarves of colored silk against the sun. A horn blast sounded, 2 short notes, then a lingering third. An invitation, not a warning. Daenerys stepped ashore first, her boots sinking slightly into warm sand. The heat struck like a forge, far harsher than the salt breeze of Blackwater Bay she had once imagined. Behind her, Missandei descended the gangplank with parchments clenched to her breast, and Grey Worms unsullied formed a protective crescent. A single Dornish herald advanced, spear grounded, visor open to reveal a brown-skinned woman with an aquiline profile. Her Grace Princess Arianne Martell bids, "Welcome to Daenerys of House Targaryen," she declared. "She awaits you at the water gardens of Sunspear." Tyrion's eyebrows lifted. "Princess Arianne, not Prince Doran. Interesting." Daenerys inclined her head to the herald. "Tell the princess I accept her welcome, and will ride with her envoys." As the herald turned back, a host of mounted knights emerged in a cloud of ochre dust, sandsteeds sleek and narrow, barded in leather studded with copper suns. At their front rode a woman in a cuirass cut like a scorpion's carapace, dark hair streaming behind a burning orange scarf. A curved blade rested at her hip, jeweled pommel winked in the harsh sunlight. Arianne Martell halted 10 paces distant and dismounted in a single fluid motion, letting her reins drop for a squire. She removed her scarf, revealing eyes black as polished jet. "Daenerys Stormborn," she greeted, voice smoky with both challenge and curiosity. You step onto Dornish sand as no foreign conqueror has since Nymeria brought her Rhoynar across the narrow sea. Nymeria married. What do you intend? To win the 7 kingdoms with as little blood as possible. Daenerys answered. Dragonfire's a last resort. Friendship is my first. She lifted her hand to the sky. Drogon answered with a deafening screech, banking toward the lagoon in a thunder of wings. Dust clattered off the sun-bleached driftwood at his passing. Horses shied. Dornish spears wavered. Yet Arianne did not flinch. Tyrion stepped between the women like a jester breaking tension at a dour feast. His name is Drogon, your grace. He only shows off when new admirers arrive. Arianne's lips curled. Doran will want proof that your dragons obey you. Daenerys raised a hand. Drogon wheeled overhead once, then climbed on an updraft, vanishing into blinding azure. They obey, she said simply. 2 days' ride across parched vineyards and stony ridges carried the Khaleesi and her entourage to Sunspear. The water gardens shimmered ahead like a mirage of marble colonnades and turquoise pools, shaded by date palms that rustled even when no wind stirred. Children of noble birth frolicked in shallow fountains, their laughter mingling with the hush of water over carved channels. Prince Doran awaited within an arched loggia overlooking the gardens. He reclined upon a cushioned chair of cedar, gout-swollen legs wrapped in linen. His eyes, dark as his daughter's, missed nothing. Nearby stood Hota, his long axe resting casually yet ready in massive hands. Arianne ushered Daenerys to a low table upon which figs, olives, and chilled pomegranates lay like rubies split for wine. The princess poured 2 goblets of water perfumed with orange blossom, offering one to the Dragon Queen. You honor me, Daenerys said, accepting. Doran dipped his head. Dorne has long honored House Targaryen, he replied, voice soft yet firm as dunestone. We remember Joel Martell, who bent the knee to Aegon peacefully. We remember the marriage of Prince Rhaegar to my sister, Aelia. His eyes glimmered with old sorrow. We also remember King Robert's usurpation and the mountain's butchery. Daenerys felt a chill beneath the desert heat. I vow that Sir Gregor Clegane will answer for those crimes. Words, rasped Doran. Yet words carry weight when spoken by a woman with 3 dragons. Tyrion cleared his throat. My prince, we come not to impose, but to join cause. The Iron Throne rots beneath my sister's cruelty. With Dorne's aid, Queen Daenerys may cleanse it. Doran's fingers traced the arm of his chair, contemplative. Dorne alone cannot topple the lioness in the capital. Yet Dorne plus dragons, unsullied, and Dothraki hordes, perhaps. He sighed, the sound like wind through canyon hollows. But alliances require marriage in Westeros. Who will your queen take to husband? Daenerys set her goblet down with a soft click. I am not a chess piece to be moved. Arianne leaned forward, eyes alight. Nor am I. Yet chess pieces sometimes topple kings. She glanced at her father, then back. House Martell remembers its oaths to Targaryens. Give us a stake equal to our risk. The tension hung like a spear tip. Tyrion felt sweat trickle down his spine, though shadows cooled the loggia. At last Doran spoke, each word slow. Let us speak plainly. My son Quentyn perished seeking you in Slaver's Bay. His death binds our fates. I offer you my nephew Trystane, as consort. Through him, your heirs will carry Dornish blood. In return, Dorne raises banners in your name, opens its coffers, and grants Sunspear as your first royal court on Westerosi soil. No. Silence fell, but for the distant splash of children in fountains. Daenerys recalled Quentyn's burned body in Meereen, the desperate dreamer who thought to tame dragons with parchment promises. She remembered his friends' pleas, the sadness in their eyes. A marriage now would honor his quest, heal wounds, build a bridge of blood and fire. Yet her heart stung with other memories. Khal Drogo's laughter beneath a red comet, Dario's swagger among purple blossoms, Hizdar's hollow offers. Duty, not desire, must guide a queen. She nodded once. Trystane is young, but dragons must bond anew with each generation. I will consider your proposal, And in the meantime, we shall draft a pact of mutual defense." Dorne bowed his head, relief softening the lines of pain. "Then let this day mark the rebirth of House Targaryen in Westeros." Celebrations erupted across Sunspear that night, fires burning atop sandstone towers, musicians piping Dornish love ballads that wound through perfumed courtyards. Yet beneath the revelry, Daenerys convened her war council in the cool belly of the Tower of the Sun. A circular map of the Seven Kingdoms lay unfurled upon a marble table, candles flickering along its edges. Varys arrived overland by secret roads, pin markers of ivory, golden lions for Lannister hosts, krakens for Euron's fleet, now rumored to prowl the stepstones, roses for Highgarden uncertain after Margaery's death, stags for Storm's End contested by pallets of black and red Baratheon remnants. Cersei concentrates forces along the Blackwater, Varys whispered, voice like a spider spinning silk in moonlight. She trusts the Red Keep's walls and Qyburn's new siege scorpions, but she does not expect attack from the south. Tyrion traced a path from Sunspear to Oldtown, then up the Mander. "We sail up the Greenblood, take the Prince's Pass, link with sympathetic reachlords." Grey Worm objected softly. "Unsullied strong on open ground, less so in mountain pass ambush. The Stormlands remain ravaged by war," said Missandei, translating for the Dothraki bloodriders who paced restlessly. "Winning their grain may avoid famine among Dornish loyalists." Daenerys listened, eyes on the map yet mind soaring above the deserts where dragons wheeled. "We will move in 3 waves," she decided. "The Unsullied secure the Boneways forts. The Dothraki ride along the coast, raiding supply lines but sparing peasants. I will fly north with Drogon to rally the lordlings of the Reach, who still kneel to the memory of my grandmother, Princess Rhaella de. Man." She laid a scarlet marble upon the King's Road south of King's Landing. "When the time comes, our fleets will strike up the Blackwater, while my dragons blind the scorpions." "In Sunspear?" asked Tyrion. "A dragon remains to guard it," she answered, glancing toward the open night balcony where Rhaegal perched like a jade gargoyle. "This city is now my heart in Westeros." Weeks passed in fervent preparation. Dornish smiths forged curved blades for Unsullied officers. Carthene coinmasters tallied crates of gold transferred from Meereen. High above the dusty black vineyards north of the Water Gardens, Daenerys trained her dragons. Drogon learned to bank low along castle ramparts, vomiting brief gouts of blue-tinged flame before veering skyward. Rhaegal mastered mid-air twists, a deadly dance to evade scorpion bolts. Viserion's pale wings stirred whirlwinds that could snuff torches along a fortress wall. Arianne often observed from a shaded gallery, silk sleeves fluttering as hot updrafts rose from dragonfire. She spoke sparingly but smiled when Drogon's shadow swallowed training dummies in a single swoop. One sunset, as the sky bled copper, she approached Daenerys by the dragon pit, carved into the sandstone bluff. "Your beasts are magnificent," she said. "Nymeria's tales speak of water dragons in the Old Rhoyne, but they are as tadpoles beside these." Daenerys wiped sweat from her brow. "Magnificent, yes, but they grow restless, caged. Soon they must hunt real prey." Mendermenel. Arianne's gaze lingered on Drogon, scales glowing like coals beside the pit fire. "And when they hunt, who limits them? A queen's mercy is not always a dragon's." "Then I must be both." Daenerys met her eyes. "I have heard rumors of the sand snakes. Will they accept my cause?" Arianne laughed, low and musical. "Obara trusts spear and shield more than words. Nymeria counts daggers sharper than promises. Tiny prays to the mother for just vengeance. Yet vengeance wears many faces. If you promise the mountain's head, they will follow." "DMD. I promise justice," Daenerys said. "Head or ashes." At first light upon the 33rd day since landing, ravens crossed the sky from the stepstones bearing dire news. Euron Greyjoy's silence had ambushed Yara's fleet near the arbor, scattering the rather loyal Ironborn vessels. Daenerys had counted on to harry Cersei's sea supply. Ships burned. Survivors wept of black sails and hellish cackles. Tyrion slammed a fist upon the map table. The Kraken strikes sooner than we guessed. With the narrow sea bottled by storms, Euron may turn south to Sunspear itself. Let him come, Grey Worm said, expression stone. Unsullied will line the cliffs. Dragons will burn masts to driftwood. Varys cautioned, yet if we defend here, Cersei marches unchallenged upon the reach, and rose banners will wilt at her approach. Daenerys stood, cloak swishing like a comet's tail. We divide strength but not purpose. The Unsullied remain to guard Dorne and the prince. The Dothraki ride with me, inland. Dragons will patrol both sky and sea. And I will fly to Starfall to court House Dane. Warriors of legend who remember my forebears. Daenerys. Tyrion exhaled slowly, nodding. I calculated chaos. Very well. Night before departure, Daenerys visited the water gardens once more. Lamps of colored glass bobbed on the pools, their reflections rippling gold and jade. Children had been ushered indoors. Only cicadas and fountains broke the hush. She found Doran Martell beneath an orange tree heavy with fruit, Ariohata standing watch. The prince gazed upon the water, lit by lantern glow. Every garden begins as a seed, he murmured without turning. When planted in good soil, it grows. When transplanted, roots may struggle to cling. He nodded toward her reflection. You are the seed of old Valyria. Dorne can be your new soil, but soils differ. Daenerys approached, folding hands before her. I will not uproot Dorne. I will water it with respect. Water is scarce in our desert, Doran said, a hint of smile. But we share it with those who share our thirst. He shifted in pain. Bring us justice. Bring us a world where children need not fear monsters in armor. She bowed. I will. Dawn's first light painted the dunes rose gold as the Dragon Queen rode from Sunspear, astride a pale sand steed, her khalasar stretching behind like an iron tide. Drogon soared overhead, his roar echoing across the empty way. Arianne rode beside her, spear glittering. Grey Worm led a vanguard of unsullied 1,500-strong bronze helms gleaming. Behind, wagons rattled with arrow crates, water barrels, tents dyed midnight to hide under starlight. They crossed the singing sand, where grains whispered legends when stirred. They forded the Brimstone River and turned north at the first outpost of Skyreach, its white tower casting a long spear shadow across cracked earth. Each night, fires burned low to mask their numbers, while Dothraki outriders captured scouts of House Caron and House Mertens, swelling prisoner pens. Daenerys ordered fair treatment, offering each captive bread, salt, and a chance to swear fealty. Many did, inspired by dragons glimpsed against moonlight. A few refused, and were sent south under guard, spared but shamed to tell of her mercy. Word spread like wildfire. The Dragon Queen rides, and she is merciful. 5 leagues shy of God's grace, a dusty rider galloped into camp bearing the sigil of House Tarly, Samwell's banner. He knelt before Daenerys' pavilion, winded, robes stained from hard travel. My lady, the reach bleeds. Lord Randall marches toward Highgarden under Lannister orders. Garland Tyrell would parley but fears betrayal. My lord father, he means to turn the castle over to the Lion Queen. Tyrion whistled softly. Randall Tarley, that old hawk, won Renly's camp to Stannis at Blackwater, then bent knee to Cersei. A weather vane of honor. Now. Daenerys rose from cushions towering in the lamplight. Tell Garland to hold until dawn tomorrow. Dragons come with the sun. She donned scaled gloves and ascended Drogon's saddle while stars still pricked the sky. The great beast leapt skyward. Wing beats like thunder rolling over the sleeping camp. Below, Dothraki cheered, spears flashing flame in torchlight. The horizon bloomed pale dove gray, then lilac, then molten gold as Drogon crested the clouds. Far beneath unfurled the quilt of the Reach. Emerald fields, rivers glinting silver, orchards like smudges of amber. Hyacinth blue mountains hemmed the east, and in the distance, Highgarden's towers glimmered ivory above the honey-colored walls. A line of dust wound toward the castle. Randall Tarley's column, ranks of disciplined spearmen, kettle drums thundering. Drogon dipped. Wind screamed past Daenerys' ears. She could smell the smoke of cook fires, hear the faint clang of armor. She guided her dragon into a slow spiral. Rehearsed calm. This was demonstration, not massacre. Drogon released a single stream of fire across an empty swath of barley, scorching a black sigil visible for miles. A three-headed dragon seared into Tyrell fields. Panic rippled through Tarly men. Horses bolted. Shields clattered. Yet Daenerys withheld further flame. Instead, she banked, wingtips skimming the haze of burnt chaff, and landed upon a low hillock overlooking the army. She raised her voice, carried by Dragonfire's echo. "Kneel, Randall Tarly, or feed my children." The old lord rode forth, face stone-hard. He looked upon the blackened barley, upon Drogon's blacker scales, and finally at the queen in the saddle. Then slowly, begrudgingly, he dismounted and knelt. Behind him, spears lowered, banners dipped. By nightfall, Garland Tyrell opened Highgarden's gates to Daenerys Targaryen. Lanterns of green glass cast emerald halos across perfumed courtyards, where bees hummed among night blooms. Dothraki slept in stables now fragrant with strange spices. Unsullied patrolled ramparts once manned by rose-cloaked guards. In the vaulted ballroom of gilded vines, Garland pledged the Reach's granaries and fleets to her cause. He vowed that Lady Olenna's death would be avenged, that House Tyrell would reclaim its honor alongside dragons. Daenerys responded by granting clemency to Tarly soldiers who bent the knee, promising fair taxation and freedom for small folk. She had tasted the cruelty of despots. She would not become one. Yet justice required teeth. At dawn, she rode to the Weirwood Grove outside the city where Randall Tarly and his son, Dickon, knelt in chains. She offered them one last chance to swear fealty. They refused. Drogon's flame consumed them in pillars of orange heat, and the stench of cooked flesh drifted over dew-wet grass. Some soldiers wept, others cheered. The realm had seen fire and blood before, yet never with such restraint. For the queen incinerated only those who spurned mercy. Rumors spread that bending the knee spared life, and so kneelers multiplied. Back in Dorne, Euron Greyjoy's longships appeared at last on the horizon like black knives against a copper sky. Yet Viserion and Rhaegal descended from the clouds with shrieks of fury, their fire turning oak and iron to molten slag. Ballistas aboard the Silence loosed great bronze bolts, one grazing Rhaegal's wing. But the jade dragon banked and vomited pale fire across the deck. Screams rose. Euron himself, laughing, leapt into the sea mere moments before his flagship shattered under exploding pitch casks. The Kraken dove, beneath waves, fate unknown. Grey worm scored triumph upon the blood-red surf. Unsullied shields deflecting errant bolt fragments as flaming wreckage washed onto shore. Prince Trystane, newly betrothed, watched in awe from Sunspear's gate. He would later write songs of dragons at dawn, sung by children throughout Dorne. Autumn gusts carried spice-laden air from the summer sea to King's Landing, where Cersei Lannister paced the marble floor of the throne room, news arriving hourly of southern defections. Her courtiers whispered of dragons in the Reach, Kraken bones off Sunspear, Dornish spears pouring through the King's Grave Pass. She turned to Qyburn. "How long until my scorpions line every wall?" "Soon, your grace," the man promised. Pale hands steepled, but the beasts grow larger each moon. Cersei's gaze shifted to the Iron Throne, barbs gleaming like a nest of vipers. "Let them come," she hissed. "I will rain wildfire upon them all." Months deepened into winter's edge, yet Dorne remained warm, a sanctuary of fruit and flame. Daenerys returned to Sunspear to oversee ships, newly christened Nymeria's Pride and Quentin's Quest. She stood upon the battlements beside Arianne as twilight painted the stepstones amethyst and gold. "We resemble two queens," Arianne observed. "Perhaps we are," Daenerys said. "Two queens will break the wheel faster than one." Below them, Dornish and Reachmen trained together, their banners intermingled in a riot of sunbursts, roses, and dragons. Children laughed in the water gardens without fear. Yet far to the north, snows gathered. Jon Snow marshaled the wildlings under Stannis' banner, skeptical of rumors of a dragon queen, yet needing allies against the white wind. Beyond the wall, the dead stirred, unseen by all those locked in wars of crowns and thrones. Daenerys felt an ill wind, as though Drogon's wings alone could not beat back the coming night. She resolved that after the lioness fell, she would turn north. Dragons were born of fire, but ice was the enemy her ancestors had forgotten. Thus ended the first campaign of the Dragon Queen in Dorne, a campaign not of ruthless conquest, but of measured allegiance, where desert sands chilled in the shadow of returning magic, and every promise of mercy burned brighter than dragonfire. And every promise of mercy burned brighter than dragonfire. The wheel had shifted, but not shattered. Yet in the shifting came hope, and hope was the fiercest flame of all. Calm A. It. Warm salt air drifted through the open shutters of Daenerys' solar in Sunspear, carrying the scent of sea lavender and distant cook fires. Torches guttered low, their flames shivering across plaster walls painted with rising dragons and coiled vipers. The night was late enough that the water gardens had fallen silent, save for the hush of fountains, yet parchment still covered the cedar table before her like fallen leaves. Ink pricked her fingers, black specks against sunburned skin. For hours she had traced troop movements, grain tallies, harbormaster ledgers, listening all the while to the restless rustle of banners outside, the hiss of Martell silks beside Tyrell velvets, the flap of unsullied copper discs, the snap of Dothraki horsehair pendants, shifting with every desert breeze. Tyrion lounged in a cushioned chair, wine forgotten half a cup below the lip. He watched Daenerys reread the same line, brow furrowed. "You will grind your teeth to dust if you keep gnawing that sentence," he said at last. She set the parchment aside. It lists 4,000 crossbow quarrels, missing from the armory at Skyreach. 4,000. She pushed silver gold hair behind one ear. "Someone sells my steel before it reaches my men." "Sold," Tyrion echoed. "Or stolen. We sit upon a crossroads of smugglers' dreams. The stepstones teem with them." He leaned forward, elbows on knees. "If 4,000 shafts vanish, the buyers cannot hide forever. They will try to sell them again, and quarrels leave marks. Let me send Bronn. He knows the stepstones the way a rat knows a grain store. Now, Sir, I will not let Sel's words bleed my cause from the shadows." "You will if you want to sit the Iron Throne?" he countered gently. "Kings and queens rule in daylight only because someone claws for them after dark. Even your ancestor Aegon the Conqueror paid spies and cut purses." A tired breath escaped her. She glanced toward the star-latticed window where Drogon's silhouette loomed atop the Tower of the Sun like a watchful gargoyle. "Send Bronn, then, but send unsullied with him. No private marauding. Imrster Mikael." Tyrion inclined his head, curls bobbing. "As you command." A soft knock sounded. Missandei stepped in, scroll tied with crimson ribbon in hand. Her face, usually placid as a summer pond, shivered with urgency. "Raven from Old Town, my queen." Daenerys sliced the ribbon with a thumbnail. The wax bore the bridge and candle of the Hightowers, though the script inside was Samwell Tarly's careful hand. She read quickly, lips moving without sound. When she finished, the paper trembled between her fingers. Tyrion straightened. "Bad news. By your face I would guess ghastly. Would you? The Citadel's ravens speak of a sickness in the streets," she whispered. "But not of flesh. Sam writes of fear, a hollowing dread among the learned. White ravens leave Old Town daily, warnings of an early winter. They smell cold winds from beyond the wall." Tyrion frowned. "A sickness of fear is harder to cure than pox." Daenerys touched the paper's edge. "Sam begs me to parley with his brother Jon Snow, newly king in the north by acclamation. He writes that the true war marches south wrapped in ice." "Ah." Tyrion's mouth twisted. "The dead." She folded the scroll. "I saw them once in a vision of the House of the Undying, an army of shadows on a frozen field. I thought it metaphor. I was wrong." Tyrion poured the last of his wine. Metaphors seldom skewer men to trees. He drank, set the cup down. "You cannot fight on two fronts at once. Cersei's lions and Winter's whites. I must. You cannot. Daenerys' violet stare fixed on him, hot as forge iron. If I burn King's Landing first, I risk arriving north too late. If I turn north now, Cersei fortifies, and every child in the Riverlands suffers for it. Naberkine. Then find another path, Tyrion urged. Dragons make new roads. He rose, pacing between candle pools. Suppose you meet this Jon Snow halfway. Treat with him before the city scouts your fires. Missandei spoke softly. Sunspear sits nearer the narrow sea than the wall, yet the wall is nearer than King's Landing. A swift ship could reach White Harbor in weeks, faster still by dragon. Tyrion snapped fingers. Sail a skein of words north. Sail yourself only halfway. Parley at Harrenhal, perhaps, neutral ground, if Harrenhal can be called neutral between ghosts. Men? Daenerys' lips pressed thin. She pictured the Black Tower cloaked in legend and curses, iron fused by dragon flames centuries ago. Harrenhal's stones still remembered Balerion's fire, and Balerion bore the same red sigil she carried now. Harrenhal, she murmured. A place where kings learn humility. A place, Tyrion agreed, where dragons have spoken before. Morning bled across Sunspear in crimsons and ambers. Grey Worm assembled 3,000 unsullied in the shadow square, spears upright, shields bright as dawn. Dothraki vanguard readied sand steeds, their braids heavy with bells newly given in raids along the Stormlander coast. Rhaegal perched upon the Boneway gate, hissing at the scent of roast goat drifting from mess fires. Daenerys walked the ranks clad in boiled leather, splinted with copper, cloak of black silk pinned by a jade dragon. A hush followed her footsteps. She halted before the front file. "Warriors of Astapor," she said, voice clean as steel. "You followed me across seas, through plague, into flame. The time comes again. We march first to Gaston Grey. Then ride the Prince's Pass. In the Reach we met honor. In the Stormlands we will forge it. Yet no castle matters more than one far to the north. An ice wall holding back night. Remember, every Lannister soldier slain now robs us of swords against death itself." The Unsullied struck spear butts to sand once, a unified thud. Dothraki behind them lifted Eric's, shouting, "Vedjoth! Victory, Dotty!" Grey Worm stepped forward, voice quiet yet carrying. "Spears will march. Dragons will fly. Wheel will break. Dot, band." She touched his shoulder. "And the world will live." 3 days later, a squadron of sleek Dornish galleys, low draft, lateen-rigged, hulls painted with rising suns and crimson dragons, slipped from the lagoon of Plankytown. Tyrion commanded Daughter of the Wind. Charts spread beside the wheel. Arianne Martell accompanied, nominally envoy, truly guardian of her people's pledge. Missandei kept the Queen's correspondence in a cedar chest, quills tied to prevent ink slosh. Daenerys sailed not with them. She soared instead. Drogon carried her north above churning seas, shadow-sweeping gulls from their flights. Cold bit deeper with each league. She crossed the stepstones in 2 wing beats, watched the ruins of Tarth glow sapphire in morning sun, angled west over Blackwater Bay to view from far above the smoke-shrouded crown of Maegor's Holdfast. Red Keep scorpions tilted skyward, searching, but she was already gone. Little more than a myth glimpsed through haze. She landed at dusk upon the gods-fearing hill of Crackclaw Point, feeding Drogon a freshly speared giant grouper. Ash-flecked jaws snapped bone, echoing across silent pines. From there, under moonless dark, she rode again, following starlight that once guided Nymeria's 10,000 ships. By the time Harrenhal's Black Keep clawed above the horizon, dawn had returned twice. She circled the ruins slowly, Drogon's shadow crawling across melted towers like the hand of history. Ravens burst in clouds from broken windows, cawing warnings older than memory. At the lakeshore, her riders awaited. Dario Naharis, newly recalled from Volantis with a free company twice his ego, and 100 Stormlander scouts led by Sir Galadon of Tarth, who had abandoned Cersei upon seeing Dragonfire char the fields of the Reach. Dario doffed his jade-encrusted helm, blue hair sticking to sweat-slick brow. "My queen, I bring troves of fine Volantine wine and 100 better swords. We carve any mark you wish into the Riverlands. Sun, dragon, or smile. Daenerys' gaze danced across him, lingering neither long nor kind. Carve nothing without my word. This castle will host parley, not pillage. Mine. He shrugged, twirling an arak. A dull blade grows restless. Then keep it keen on straw. Jon Snow's army arrived in ragged columns, banners hanging limp in a still heat unseasonable for autumn this far north. Direwolf, merman, flayed man, sunburst chains. Weather-blistered faces regarded Harrenhal's ruin with mingled awe and dread. Knights from the Vale wore polished plate, but wildling spears and Karstark axes stood beside them, steel bound by threads of frost, fraying at the edges. Daenerys awaited upon the outer bailey. Drogon crouched behind her like a mountain come to life. Rhaegal and Viserion circled overhead. Their shadows crossed the dusty courtyard in intersecting crescents. Jon dismounted, black cloak trimmed in gray fox, long claws strapped across his back. Behind him came Sansa Stark, hair the color of dusk at harvest, and Davos Seaworth, cheeks freshly shaved for diplomacy. Tormund Giantsbane marched with arms bare to the chill, grin broad as the wall itself. Silence pressed until even crows ceased cawing. Then Jon stepped forward. Steel greaves scraping flagstone fused long ago by dragonfire. Dark eyes met violet, ice, and wildfire. He sank to one knee. "My queen," he said. Gasps rippled through northern ranks. Sansa's brow arched. Davos exhaled. Daenerys' heart thudded once. Hard. But she kept face serene. "Rise, king in the north." He did. "My people call me that, but I come not to claim titles, only alliances. Winter falls now. The enemy of all living things marches behind cold wind." "Ree," Tyrion down the steps murmured. "A fine beginning." Jon's gaze flicked across the red-black standard flapping above the gate. "I swore to bend the knee to no southern ruler until the dead are defeated. I break no oath by kneeling here. The north will follow me, if you will commit your strength to the wall." Daenerys walked closer till breath mingled between them. Hers warm, his fogging cold despite mild air. "The wall stands far. Cersei sits near. My duty lies." "Duty lies with the living," Jon cut in, voice rough but steady. "Every lion that roars your name will freeze in his armor if we fail." She glanced at Drogon, his great head lowered to sniff Jon, hot gust lifting black curls. Jon resisted urge to step back. "I lost brothers to fire," he said quietly, "but I'll stand beside it if fire stands beside me." Daenerys rested a hand upon the dragon's neck, scales warm under her palm. "I will send aid," she said. "Half my unsullied. 10,000 Dothraki. 2 dragons." Murmurs surged. Tyrion's brow shot up. "Half? Half remain to guard the south," she said. "I cannot leave Dorne naked, nor abandon the reach I just saved." Jon nodded. "Fair bargain. The north offers our smiths to mend your army's steel, and mine workers to supply dragonglass from Dragonstone's cliffs. Samwell Tarly writes that dragonglass kills walkers. Then it is more precious than gold." She extended her hand. Jon took it. Her grip surprised him, slender yet fierce as leather across a drawn bow. Word spread like wildfire in dry grass. Dragon and wolf packed, sworn beneath the shattered towers of Harrenhal. Raven wings carried tidings to Winterfell, to White Harbor, to Moat Cailin. In Dorne, Prince Doran smiled faintly for the first time in moons. In King's Landing, Cersei shattered a goblet against a wall so hard the crimson wine streaked like gore. 7 days of council followed. In the echoing hall of 100 hearths, they unfurled maps across blackened tables, candles guttering in high alcoves. Tyrion's quill scratched beside Davos' blunt sailor's nail. Sansa considered supply lines, her quill hovering above parchment, stitched with grain tallies. Grey Worm plotted unsullied phalanx positions along the King's Road. Gendry Baratheon, pulled from his forge in Storm's End, sketched ballista designs for firing dragonglass bolts. At night Daenerys wandered Harrenhal's labyrinthine passages. Her footsteps echoed beneath ceilings warped by heat of her forebears' fire. In one chamber, Moonlight poured through a jagged hole once a window. She paused to gaze at starlit ashes drifting down like ghostly snow. "I used to dream of this place," a voice said. She turned. Jon. Cloak wrapped around shoulders. "In Winterfell's library there is a painting of Balerion's shadow across Harrenhal," he continued. "I studied it, imagining the roar." Daenerys glanced at Drogon's silhouette perched upon a broken tower, wings folded. "He is smaller than Balerion at that age, yet his heart is as vast." Jon tapped stone fused into glassy ribbons. "Fire stronger than any forge, yet houses crumble all the same." His hand brushed the wall's melted wave. "My father, my uncle, died to rid Westeros of your father's shadow, and mine died to avenge it," she said softly. "We inherit ghosts, Jon Snow, but we are not them." "Daenerys." He met her eyes beneath flickering torchlight. Embers of understanding kindled. Small sparks. Fragile. A low horn sounded in the courtyard. A scout arrived from the Trident. Lannister outriders had burned salt pans at Maidenpool, forcing small folk toward the coast. Worse, a gray sail bearing a golden kraken ranged northward, preying on gullible fishercraft. Euron alive, hungry. Plans accelerated. Jon would ride hard to Winterfell with Daenerys' vanguard. Tyrion steered the galleys upriver to ferry Unsullied to White Harbor. Dothraki would gallop through the neck, their hoofbeats sure despite fens. Dragons split. Rhaegal north with Jon. Viserion south with Dany. Drogon her own constant. They had forged unity. Now they must test it. On the 10th dawn, men gathered in the outer yard for a parting. Frost glittered on broken flagstones, though the air held little chill. Portent of winter's breath come early. Jon clasped Daenerys' forearm as brothers in arms. "Northmen are stubborn," he warned. "But they respect strength and mercy both. Show them dragons, show them justice." "Dash, I will show them hope." Sansa stepped forward, curtsy slight but sincere. "The Queen is welcome at Winterfell," she said. "Our halls are hardy." Tyrion gave Sansa a crooked smile. "But not draft-free. I have thicker furs than last time you saw me." Jon mounted his courser, Rhaegal descending beside like a monstrous green gale. Children of Riverlords clutched mothers when the dragon roared, but no one broke rank. Jon spurred forward, the coalition streaming behind. Tall spearmen of the Vale, black-cloaked knights, watch veterans, giants riding shaggy mammoths under Tormund's watch. Daenerys watched until their banners vanished into mist rising off the lake. For a heartbeat, loneliness, bit colder than any northern wind. Drogon nudged her with his muzzle, a sound between purr and growl. "We have our own battle," she told him. Days later her host approached Storm's End. Sea winds whipping whitecaps against half-collapsed breakwaters. The castle stood defiant atop a promontory, drum towers shaped like titanic shields braced against ceaseless storm. Within its courtyard rows of Baratheon loyalists knelt before Gendry as rightful lord, proclaimed at Davos urging and Daenerys' decree. Black stag banners flapped anew, antlers stitched with a subtle scarlet thread, allegiance sworn. Lady Brienne of Tarth arrived the next dawn, bearing an escort of sapphire-cloaked men-at-arms. She pledged island strength to Daenerys on condition that no violence be done to innocents of the Stormlands. "I have long hunted wars that spare the weak," she said. "Swear you will strike true." Daenerys swore. Together they pushed north along the Roserad, gathering levies. Rendell Tarley's burned field had become dark testimony. Few dared refuse the Dragon Queen twice. Yet within each captured holdfast, she left men of mercy to oversee just tithes, not plunder. Grain wagons rolled south to feed Sunspear and east to feed Storm's End. Small folk cheered dragons overhead as wards, not terrors. But the lion was not toothless. Jaime Lannister led 2,000 seasoned knights out of the gold fields of the Westerlands, striking east to cut supply. He rode beneath a banner quartered with lion and maiden-cloaked sentinel, the arms of House Lannister and House Tarbeck resurrected in defiance. Rumor claimed Cersei had bound him with guilt over Tommen's death. Rumor claimed he had left King's Landing in secret, Crown's blessing, uncertain. The two forces met at Bitterbridge beside a half-frozen mander. Mist clung to river reeds. Winter's first teeth bared in the south. Campfires flickered between tents, bearing sunburst roses and swirling red dragon heads. Ymy's outriders circled like cats, slashing supply wagons, vanishing before unsullied pikes closed. Rain hissed upon shields, turning ground to ochre mud. Daenerys eyed the lines at dusk atop a low ridge, cloak plastered to armor. He probes but will not charge. He knows dragons rule sky by day. He waits for night. Dario lounged nearby, wet hair stringing across cheekbones. Night or day, a sword in the dark finds flesh. Imy rides steel passion, Tyrion said. But he counts numbers too. He will not commit until he sees why. Then we show him why, Daenerys answered. She mounted Drogon under a rain-streaked moon. Clouds parted just enough for silver light to paint his wings. He leapt high. Thunder rolled behind as air displaced. Camps below gasped like one breath. Jaime in golden armor turned his white courser to track the dragon's climb. Instead of flame, Daenerys released a single barrel lashed beneath Drogon's belly. It fell, burst upon a ridge in a plume of greenish sparks. Wildfire, harmless quenched, blazing only where she chose. A message. I possess your father's madness made law, yet leash it. Jaime halted. Rain slid down his helm as he considered drenched fields. Fire and water warred before him. He knew where madness led kingdoms. At sunrise he sent a herald with white flag, parleyed. They met midfield beneath dripping pavilion cloth. Jaime bowed. Stiff. His beard carried gray now, but green gold eyes still cut. You are not your father, he said without preface. You are not mine, she returned. He exhaled. Cersei will burn the capital before yielding. Wildfire stores slumber in vaults beneath the city. She rouses them. Nelray. Tyrion's face blanched. So the rumors prove. Jaime continued, rain pattering on steel pauldrons. I rode to slow you, not slay. If you march slower, perhaps I buy time to disarm her. You would betray your queen, Daenerys said. My sister, he corrected. My child's killer. The city's greatest threat. Daenerys held his gaze. Disarm or delay, the choice is hers. Offer surrender, and she may keep her life. And if she refuses, then the Red Keep will burn, but not the city. My dragons can fly over walls, strike only towers. Neodor. Wildfire obeys no mark, Jaime warned. Once lit, wind drives it. Tyrion laid a hand on his brother's vambrace. Then let us snuff the candles before they catch. Jaime nodded once. Sharp. I will ride for King's Landing alone. Give me 1 fortnight. 10 days, Daenerys allowed. No more. My armies cannot winter in mud. So struck, Jaime departed east with Crimson Dawn at his back. Some called him Oathbreaker anew. Others whispered Kingslayer again. He rode burdened by both names, unsure which blade would weigh heavier. 9 days later, ravens delivered divergent omens. Jon Snow had reached Winterfell, forging dragonglass into spearheads that glimmered like midnight frost. Euron Greyjoy's silence prowled the narrow sea with sails sewn from flayed Dornish hides, and a column of refugees staggered south through the neck. Northern crofters driven by blue-eyed corpses, stalking the deep forest. Daenerys studied the messages atop a watchtower over the trampled fields of Bitterbridge. Her host had grown to near 40,000, but food dwindled. Frost-coated tents each dawn. The wheel desired breaking, yet cold threatened all spokes. She imagined Jon's face beneath flurrying snow, hammering black glass into mortal salvation. She imagined Cersei's flame slithering beneath cobblestones. The world balanced on twin blades, ice and fire. She summoned counsel. Tyrion, Dario, Brienne, Arianne by Raven, Davos by Fast Horse, even the smiling Maester Marwyn from Old Town, who had replaced Pycelle's missing ravens with bold theories of Valyrian lore. They argued till torches burned low. Should they push to King's Landing before winter sealed roads? Should they pivot north, leaving Cersei to rot? At last Daenerys rose. I will split once more. Tyrion, you take 2/3 of footmen. all siege engines, and march upon the capital. You will camp beyond the Blackwater, raise trebuchets, but do not strike until Jaime's time expires. Dario will ride with you, but Brienne remains protector of roads." Tyrion's brows met. "And you?" "I fly north with Drogon and Viserion. I will bring dragons to the wall before the night army pierces it." Grey Worm sails unsullied up Sweetwater to Maidenpool and marches inland to join you. Davos bowed. "I shall guide your ships, my queen." Brienne knelt. "I will keep the roads safe." Dario winked. "And I will keep the imp alive." Tyrion sighed. "The gods help me." Daenerys approached the balcony, wind-tugging cloak like unseen hands. Stars blazed unblinking, winter clear. She lifted her face. "We were born for this hour," she whispered to herself, perhaps to the sky. "Dragons and wolves, lions and stags, all threads in one great tapestry." Behind her, war brewed. Ahead, darkness waited. Yet within, a strange calm unfurled, quiet as snowfall over embers. She would ride fire into ice, and return with dawn. Or not at all. Her departure came under pale morning light. Drogon, Viserion and newly harnessed Rhaegal, returned after guiding Jon, climbed beside her into a crystal sky. Soldiers below gasped. Some knelt. Some cheered. She glimpsed Tyrion, a small figure atop the battlements, waving a parchment like surrender to wind. The ground fell away. Rivers ribboned silver. Fields lay patchwork green and russet. Castles jutted like broken teeth. And far to the north, past blue mountains and gray plains, a line of white glimmered where the world ended, and nightmare began. She set her course by that pallid edge, heart beating in time to dragon's wings. High above Winterfell, Jon Snow lifted his gaze. Black glass spearheads stacked at his feet, steam curling from forged chimneys. He saw a shadow triple-winged carve the frozen sky, a comet of flame and purpose. He smiled despite the chill, despite the dread rising from beyond the trees. Fire had come. Ice awaited. And between them all, men chose either hope or oblivion. Thus the tale turned, still unfinished, wheels yet to break, but now rolling upon roads no bard had dared imagine. A queen of fire streaking toward the heart of winter, a city of ash held in suspense, and the fragile dream of a realm united by mercy, fierce enough to burn and gentle enough to heal. Alhain. Drogon's wings beat a steady thunder above the rolling foothills of the neck, each downstroke kicking columns of mist from the half-frozen marshes below. Mid-afternoon sun glimmered through ragged clouds and flashed along the dragon's black scales like lightning along obsidian cliffs. On Viserion's pale back, Grey Worm clung tight behind his saddle strap, visor down against the rush of wind and cold. The unsullied commander had never flown before that week, yet already sat as if born to it. Spine rigid, eyes calm, spear lashed crosswise behind him. Daenerys rode ahead on Drogon, leading the two younger dragons through rag-edged vapor, as though threading them upon an invisible tether. Below, the advance host snaked north in uneven knots. Dothraki outriders spurring shaggy ponies along raised dikes. Rivermen on shag-built rafts poling barbed stakes through peat channels. A column of Tyrell engineers coaxing mule carts across rickety plank causeways. Every half-mile the army stalled, while carpenters laid new footings, or replaced boards sunk under the weight of bronze-shod horses. When the marsh gave way to fur-blanketed ridges, snow patched the hollows like ash flakes. Winter's first scattered heralds. Daenerys dipped Drogon toward a grassy shelf above the green fort. Wind sheared against her cheeks, leaving skin raw and bright. As they landed, the dragon's talons sank a handspan into soft earth, leaving prints full of steaming water. She swung down, boots crunching frosted grass. Viserion settled moments later. Grey Worm dismounted in one fluid slide. "Rest a few hours," she said, stroking Drogon's warm neck. "Hunt if you must, but stay close." Drogon hissed assent, already sniffing the air for elk. Rhaegal, miles ahead scouting the White Knife, sent a distant answering screech. She felt the vibration through the bond like a chord thrummed on heartstrings. Grey Worm removed helmet, revealing a spray of frost clinging to close-cropped hair. Scouts report bandits west, remnants of House Dustin's levies. Many fear winter, steal from small folk. And wear lion livery because it grants terror, she finished. We will ride them down at first light. He nodded. Unsullied will form vanguard. Dothraki right flanks. Have them take prisoners where they can. We need every arm for the fight beyond the wall. She glanced north, where mountains of mist loomed like sleeping giants. Even cowardly arms may swing blades against the dead. Grey Worm's mouth tightened, but he bowed and strode away to relay orders. At sunset she convened war council inside a half-collapsed tower, a watchpost from some bygone river king. Broken tracery framed a sky of tarnished brass. A single hearth blazed in the center, smoke curling through the absent roof. Tyrion arrived soaked to thighs, boots rimed with marsh ice. He thawed fingers near the flames, while Arianne Martell unfurled fresh reports, and Davos Seaworth poured mulled ale sweetened with apple. The main host reached Moat Caelin's causeway by noon, Davos said. Molten spikes still jut from the ditches, but the Karstark men you won at Harrenhal know the paths. They'll clear the worst by daybreak. Tyrion tapped parchment. Better news south. Jaime's Raven reports Cersei accepted his escort. To bless the new Scorpion foundries with her presence, which is high Valyrian for Hez seizing her into house arrest. He says if you wish the capital delivered unburned, you must give him 7 more days. Dan Champagne. Ortnight promised. 10 days given. And now 7 more asked. Arianne mused. Lannisters bargain like silk merchants. Daenerys studied the fire, thinking of wildfire casks slumbering beneath Flea Bottom. Grant the days, but instruct the fleets to close the Gullet and Blackwater mouth. If Cersei escapes by sea, all Jaime's courage is ash. Tyrion bowed. I'll have the Arbor galleys redeploy. But Euron Greyjoy prowls the stepstones still. Pinning him and guarding the mouth both will stretch us thin. No, not if we turn Kraken to bait. She motioned for Quill. Scribbled curt lines to Yara Greyjoy at Deepwood Motte, promising pardon, salt throne recognition if the Ironborn blockade their own mad king. Yara despises Euron more than she loves victory, she said, sealing the message with a dragon in molten wax. Hatred is the sharpest hook. A gust rattled broken shutters, sparks spiraled up into dark. In that moment, she felt the weight of realms balance upon fragile threads. One raven late, one gale too strong, one arrow astray. Yet threads could be woven into fate if held tight enough. Dawn's pale steel hush broke under hoofbeats. Dothraki outrunners swept into camp shouting of smoke west of the army. Daenerys mounted a swift chestnut. They had named him Cusa, Wind Dancer, and spurred through pine shade toward the column of black rising behind a low ridge. Tarred farmsteads greeted her. Thatched roofs collapsed, churned snow slushed red-brown. Bodies lay where they'd fallen, graybeards, babes whimpering beside silent mothers. Tracks of iron-shod cavalry stamped the mud, heading deeper into the hills. Her fury smoldered colder than any frost. "Saddle my blood riders," she told Jocko. Now first co's of her Khalasar. "We hunt." She took only 50, 30 Dothraki, 10 unsullied horse lancers, 9 Dornish bowmen under Miria Sand, and Jorah Mormont, found on the neck's outskirts offering fealty anew, pardoned by Jon and by her both. He rode silent at her left as they ascended rocky switchbacks, mist steaming from mains. Near dusk, they crested a ridge overlooking a ruined sept. Laughter drifted up. Rue, drunken. Fires crackled among toppled stones. Golden lions painted shields propped against rubble. A dozen men caroused. Iron kettle hanging over flames, rich with stolen haunch. Daenerys dismounted and walked into torchlight alone. Snowflakes swirled about her cloak. Moonlight lit her hair silver. One sellsword staggered. "Pretty ghost," he slurred. "Come warm us, Wraith." He reached, then froze, eyes widening as her dragon's roars echoed overhead. Drogon plummeted, wings smashing wind. The men scrambled, but she raised a gloved hand. "No," she commanded. Drogon hovered, tail lashing, but withheld fire. The Sellswords stared, knees buckling. Daenerys drew the auric at her hip. Curved, Kuhoric steel, gifted by Dario long ago. She tapped its edge to a fallen shield. "Who leads you?" A burly knight stumbled forth, lion's sigil half burned from his tabard. "Sir Elbert Lannet," he managed, sword wavering. Bannerman sworn loyal to Casterly Rock. Loyalty to House Lannister ended when they chose war against life itself. Her voice carried the chill. "Swear fealty to the realm's survival or die here." The men glanced skyward, where Drogon's eyes glowed coals. Many dropped blades at once. Sir Elbert spat, raised his. "I kneel to lions alone, then kneel in ashes." She stepped back. Dracarys. A river of flame engulfed the night and the kettle both, igniting spilt wine in a blue caul. Snow around melted to hissing mud. Survivors knelt sobbing, hands upturned in surrender. She sheathed auric. "Bind them. They march north tonight. There they'll fight the dead until pardon earned or end found." Jorah watched her with unreadable eyes, beard rimed with frost. Later, beside a stunted willow, he spoke quietly. "You spared most. Still you burn to warn the rest." "I burn what forces choice," she said. "Fear teaches swifter than sermons." He nodded. "But fear lingers, Khaleesi. Water your mercy, lest fear grow thorns." She considered that silently as flakes settled on glowing coals. 3 nights later, the host crossed the Tumblestone at Stonehenge, welcomed by Lord Piper, a florid man whose archers had skirmished Lannisters since Erisol. He hosted feasts of turnip stew and tough river trout, meager yet heartfelt. Wandering minstrels sang of dragons in Dorne, of roses blooming after fire, of a wolf and dragon meeting beneath cursed towers. Common folk pressed close to glimpse silver hair and emerald scales. With each mile north, rumors thickened. Flayed corpses found at abandoned holdfasts. Blue-eyed hunters glimpsed at dusk along tree lines. A miller's boy revived after death, skin hard as ice, killed only when his own mother split his skull with an axe. Daenerys listened, asked details, etched them on mind's map. She sent ravens ahead to Jon, dead sighted south of Last Hearth. Villages evacuated, wildling scouts vanished in haunted forest. His replies came swift, terse, burdened with dread yet brightened by progress, forging dragonglass weapons by the hundreds. Gendry's new lathes at Winterfell churned spearheads like midnight rain. Lyanna Mormont drilled islanders night and day. Tormund reported giants volunteering to heave flaming logs against white hordes. A single line heartened her most. "Where Hegel guards us nightly, children sleep easier beneath his wings." Dragons a shield, not scourge, proof her vision bore fruit. At the wall's shadow White Harbor bustled like a stirred anthill. Unsullied phalanxes embarked from long galleys, shields flashing in pale sunrise. Sir Davos guided them through city gates, meeting Lady Rhea Manderly, a stout woman in walrus fur cloak, who offered warehouses for grain and homes for wounded. Grey Worm bowed low, surprising the lady. She bowed in return. Strange dance of distant cultures bound by necessity. Daenerys arrived on dragons' backs 2 days later, spiraling down to wide wharves crusted with salt rime. Manderly banners snapped from mastheads. Sailors cheered when Drogon's shadow swept over the harbor mouth, scattering gulls and squawking flurries. Inside the new keep's great hall, thick tapestries muffled north winds. Jon Snow waited at foot of a dais, flanked by Sansa and Lord Glover. His face lit the instant he saw her, relief fractured by fatigue. She stepped forward, removed glove. He clasped her wrist, calluses rough against her pulse. "We march to the wall at once," he said. "Ghost ranges beyond Eastwatch, returns each dawn restless. The dead gather out of bowshot now. When they charge we must meet them in open field, not cower on stones." Daenerys looked to the hall's hearth, where flames danced but offered little warmth. "How many stand with you?" 18,000 able-bodied, counting unsullied and wildlings. Giants and mammoths make half-again beasts but not men. And dragon glass? As many spears as days we've had. Still forging. Arrows tip too. He motioned to Gendry beside an anvil, hammer slung. "Smiths, work 3 shifts." Tyrion approached, dusted snow from shoulders. Cersei presses no assault yet, but ravens whisper of gold cloaks drilling day and night. "We hold narrow window before South demands our strength again." Sansa stepped down. "We will hold the North ourselves if need be." Much of Cersei's bluster will crumble once word spreads she sits siege within her own walls. No allies but sells words fed on promises. She offered parchment, an envoy from the Vale pledging 10,000 under Lord Robert Arryn. Arriving within a fortnight, Daenerys glanced over seal. "If Vale wings bolster Winterfell, we may send a greater share of unsullied South when time comes." Jon placed hand atop hers on the letter. "One war at a time. Come, see what we have built." On Winterfell's training yard, forges flared beneath windbreak hides, sparks speckling the sky like frenzied fireflies. Smiths hammered dragonglass into arrowheads. Spear points, knives to dye. Piles cooled on snowbank tables. Children of 10 carried buckets of shards to sharpeners. Old men trimmed shafts. Above, Rhaegal perched on the broken tower's highest crenellation, belly rising with slow thunder. Daenerys touched a spearhead, smooth black, edges glimmering purple. "It sings of old Valyria," Gendry said, handing her a finished spear. "Hard as steel, light as ash. Breaks only if dropped on stone from height. Even then, sometimes not. Now, and it kills the dead? I tested on a captured wight north of the Shivering Sea, cracked like frost glass." She gripped the haft, felt power hum. "Make as many as wood will bear." Jon nodded. "We ride for Castle Black with first moonrise. Eastwatch still holds, but barely. Tormund's scouts report a breach near Frostfangs, numbers beyond counting." She looked south. Snowy haze blurred horizon. 2 wars indeed, one of flesh and one of crowns. But the realm had only one life. "Then we ride," she said. Journey to Castle Black took 4 days by horse, 2 by dragon. She flew ahead with Rhaegal and Drogon, leaving Viserion to guard Winterfell's forges. Jon rode hard below, flanked by Karstark outriders and Lyanna Mormont on a rangy chestnut bigger than she. Winds sharpened until air sliced lungs. Drifts scored the King's Road like white dunes. At Molestown they found refugees huddled in cellar ruins, eyes wide as cracked ice. She ordered tents raised, soup kettles lit. Children bundled into Dothraki furs, not a single protest from the horse lords who once mocked pale northerners. Drogon took 2 goats from a panicked herd, but returned bones enough for stew. Mercy measured even in reptilian appetite, she mused. On the eve of arrival, the sky snarled gray-green. Sheets of rime hissed against armor, rattled banners stiff. The wall loomed through sleet, unfathomable, jagged blue, higher than any pyramid of Meereen. Its crown blurred into storm clouds, like heaven chiseled by cruel gods. Ravens wheeled frantic over Castle Black. Horn sounded thrice. Alarm, not greeting. Jon spurred up the switchback path, unsullied columns double-tined behind. From parapets, men shouted, "They're here! To the west!" Arrow slots flashed firelight. Ballistae reeled into place. Daenerys landed Drogon within the courtyard, dismounted amidst roiling snow devils. Dolorous Ed greeted with grim nod. "We sent patrol to Then River. Only horses returned. Now shadows move beneath woods." Jon grasped his shoulder. "Hold gate. We meet them on field." Catapults angled above the hoardings, loaded with pitch barrels. Then warriors slammed shields together, chanting guttural war chants. Wildling spears and knights, watch bows lined along crenellations, disparate black cloaks stitched with bright furs. Once foe, now brothers. Torches bobbed down the switchback as Jon's host filed onto the frozen wastes before the wall. Wind gusted, extinguishing many, leaving darkness broken only by flicker of dragonglass blade edges. In that near silence, Daenerys felt her heartbeat throb like war drums. Across the field, shapes emerged. First a ripple, then a tide. Gaunt silhouettes, ice-rimmed leather, eyes phosphorescent blue. Snow kicked by their advance, shimmered like shards of shattered stars. Among them, lumber-giants of bone, reindeer horns still lashed to brows, packs of dead direwolves slunk between twisted legs. Jon raised Longclaw. Archers! Arrows hissed black against swirling white. Many found throats, ribs, glancing uselessly. But those tipped with dragon glass burst whites into powder. Cheers rose brief, but the tide surged on. Daenerys swung into Drogon's saddle. Beneath her palms muscles coiled like thunderheads. She inhaled razor air, tasted fear and iron. "Dracarys," she whispered. Fire erupted, pure orange in the blizzard gloom, washing across the dead front. Scores disintegrated, ice giants staggered, limbs sloughing. A hot wind blasted back into her face, scalding tears. Yet beyond the charred gap, more dead, climbed over ashes. Relentless. Rhaegal strafed to left flank, green flame journaling the night. Roars drowned screams. But then, from the storm shroud, something vast and terrible answered. A shriek like metal torn from stone. Low, sorrow-soaked. Blue lightning crackled inside the blizzard wall. Shadows parted to reveal an ice dragon. Wings translucent, veins glowing cobalt, eyes lifeless bright. Viserion risen, harnessed by the Night King atop spined saddle of frozen sinew. Jon's cry was lost in gale. Daenerys felt ribs seize. Saw her child enslaved. Flame turned frost. The ice dragon beat wings once. Hurled a spear of pale fire, cold enough to freeze flame, toward Rhaegal. The green dragon veered, but the breath grazed his tail, scales icing instantly, shards cascading. "Drogon, high!" she urged, banking. Frost breath followed, crystallizing air into shimmering columns. Drogon outpaced it, but she felt cold snake into her bones. Whites reached unsullied shield wall. Grey worms shouted in Valyrian. Ranks locked, spears stabbed, dragonglass lances shattered bone. Dothraki screamed, "Ijalan!" and charged, Arrys flashing black lightning. Behind, giants hurled flaming logs into the mass. But numbers pressed. For every dead fell two replaced. Night King raised skeletal hands. Bodies Jon had slain earlier shuddered on snow, claws opening anew. Daenerys climbed above the maelstrom. Drogon roared challenge. She saw Rhaegal recovering, spiraling to gain altitude. The ice dragon wheeled to intercept. She would not watch another child die. Now, she breathed. Drogon folded wings, stooped like a falling star. He angled behind Viserion, flame already flickering at jaws. But the Night King twisted, guiding his mount up. Blue fire met orange. Two breaths clashed mid-air, exploding into steam that flash froze, shards pelting both dragons. Drogon bellowed pain. Daenerys' cloak stiffened with frost. They broke apart. She felt Drogon labor, membranes torn where ice spears punched holes. They circled again. On ground, Jon hacked a path toward a tall figure in ragged cloak, ice armor glinting with runes. The Night King's lieutenant. Longclaw clanged on pale blade of crystal. Sparks blue and white jumped. Davos rallied shield bearers, trying to flank. But attention snapped skyward as the Night King drew his spear of black ice. He balanced, aimed at Drogon. Daenerys' pulse hammered. No, she would not lose him. She jerked reins. Drogon veered, but the spear flew, trailing frost. Rhaegal dove from cloud cover, ramming Viserion side on and jolting the Night King's throat. The spear thudded into the ground yards from Tyrion, shearing a wildling's leg to rhyme. Dragons tangled, green and ice blue claws slashing, bites crunching. Viserion's wing membrane tore. Frost blood spattered snow like shattered quartz. Rhaegal, wounded tail still trailing glitter, locked jaws on the undead dragon's neck and wrenched. Bones cracked. The Night King rose in saddle, another spear conjured. Daenerys steered Drogon into a narrow climb, breathing slowed to a single prayer. Let flame prevail. They plummeted, crest alone catching moonlight. She loosed Drogon's full furnace straight onto the Night King's back. Fire cascaded sapphire, turquoise, molten gold. The spear melted to droplet mid-cast. Viserion shrieked, flesh boiling where saddle fused. For a heartbeat, all vanished behind a curtain of boiling vapor. When steam cleared, the undead dragon writhed but still lived. Fire had seared but not unbound sorcery. The Night King stood unscathed on blazing hide, armor glowing white-hot yet untouched. Ice magic too strong. Yet Rhaegal, free moment, raked talons across Viserion's chest. Cracks spidered along crystallized bone. One final wing beat, and Rhaegal shoved, sending both plummeting into the frozen lake beyond the wall's shadow. Water cracked, swallowed them amid geysers of frost steam. Night King vanished beneath. Silence dropped, only wind keening. Then the whites faltered. Some paused mid-charge, heads jerking to where their master fell. Jon Saw shouted to archers, "Aim for White Walkers! Break the bind!" Miriasand loosed arrow of dragonglass, striking a pale rider atop skeletal horse. The shard pierced throat. The walker shattered, shards tinkling. Dozens of whites collapsed lifeless. Others still pressed. Commanders remained. Grey Worm's shield line advanced, driving spears through disoriented corpses. Giants swung flaming brands like children's toys, clearing swaths. Daenerys descended near Jon. She dismounted, knees buckling. Jon steadied her. "He's not dead," she gasped. "He will be soon if Lake takes him." Jon scanned the melee. But gaps open. Push now. Drogon landed behind, tail felling a cluster of whites. His scales steamed, patches white-rimmed. Daenerys stroked charred ridge. "One more flight," she whispered. Drogon nudged her shoulder. Jon rallied horns. Northmen surged with fresh fury, smashing flanks. Wildlings roared songs of the first men. Lyanna Mormont scrambled atop a white giant, plunged dragonglass daggers into glowing eyes. The giant toppled, burying her beneath snow. She crawled free, bloodied but alive. Above the battlefield, a strange stillness accumulated. Snow ceased, clouds parted, revealing cold stars. In that hush, the lake erupted. A pillar of water soared, freezing midair, shattering to sleet. Out of churning darkness rose the Night King astride a colossal spider of ice, 8 legs skittering across shattered flows. Eyes burned cerulean. Atop high ridge his remaining lieutenants gathered, forming phalanx. Daenerys mounted again. "This ends." Jon grasped her forearm. Fear, desperation in his eyes. He let go. She spurred Drogon skyward. Grey Worm signaled archers to fall back behind shield walls. Davos loaded catapults with pitch. Drogon climbed until stars blurred, then folded wings, dived toward the ridge. Fire glowed in throat. The Night King raised arms. Winds howled, swirling blizzard around him. Flames veered, buffeted, but still white-hot. At last second, he hurled massive shard. Broken wall ice fused to spear. Drogon twisted. The shard grazed left wing, hacking sinew. The dragon faltered but maintained descent. Daenerys leaned low, whispering love. Urging final breath, Drogon roared. Sound raw as birth, unleashing inferno that melted storm midair. Flames struck ridge like hammer. Walkers erupted into shards. Ice spiders screeched, legs liquefying. The Night King staggered, armor glowing red. Yet within blaze his skin frosted anew, magic sealing flesh. Jon below saw opportunity. He charged, Longclaw raised, flanked by Tormund and Hound and Brienne. They crashed through faltering whites, clambered ridge. The Night King turned, conjuring Frost Spear. But Brienne blocked with Valyrian steel Oathkeeper, deflecting glacial shards. Tormund tackled Spider's remnants, hacking. Jon met the ancient creature's gaze. Horror of millennia. He swung Longclaw. Blade bit into mail, carved deep but not through. The Night King backhanded him. Ribs cracked, breath burst white. Daenerys circled, searching. Drogon too injured for tight turns. She spotted a fissure behind the ridge. Blue light pulsed within. Source of power? She guided Drogon lower, weaving through jags. Heat from dragon melted snow, revealing circles of runes carved in rock, glowing cobalt, fed by shadowy veins. Heart of his spell. Dracarys, she breathed. Fire poured into fissure. Rock melted. Runes shattered. A boom like mountain's death rippled. On ridge the Night King stiffened, eyes flickering. His armor cracked, blue brightness leaking. Jon staggered to feet. Seized moment. He thrust Longclaw through the breach in breastplate. Steel met fragile crystal heart. An explosion of frost slammed outward. Jon thrown. Blue light guttered, fled. The Night King burst into snow dust. Instantly every wight collapsed. Silence fell. Absolute, broken only by distant groan of shifting ice. Jon lay gasping, staring at stars. Daenerys landed nearby, stumbling from saddle. She ran to him, knelt, pressed gloved hand to his brow. Warm blood stained snow from his lip, ribs bruised. He clutched her wrist. "It's done." She looked out. Fields strewn with lifeless corpses, now truly dead. Grey Worm raised broken spear, disbelief on features. Wildlings dropped weapons, some sobbing. "It's done," she said. A howl answered. Ghost bounding across snow, nuzzling Jon. He laughed hoarsely. They rose. Rhaegal limped to land, tail scoured but alive. Drogon collapsed to knees. Daenerys soothed him, promised rest. Viserion's broken form lay half-submerged, distant, silent at last. On parapets, horns blew triumph but low, mournful. Cost weighed heavy. Fires flickered along ramp of the wall, where watchmen signaled to Eastwatch and Shadow Tower. Jon turned to Daenerys. Frost glittered in her hair, eyes bright from tears unshed. He bowed head. Queen of dragons, and of the dawn. She touched his cheek. No dawn without wolves? He smiled, weary. In that bleak light, they stood surrounded by slain death, living breaths steaming together. The days that followed blurred, funeral pyres stretching leagues, long trenches dug in hard earth. Giants lifted timbers, dragons breathed flame to honor fallen. Lyanna Mormont lit first pyre, voice steady as iron. The names carried on wind. Halder, Jory Risewell, Carl the Maid, dozens more. Snow fell soft, burying ashes in white hush. Tyrion arrived 4 days later, bearing dispatch. King's Landing ringed by siege lines. Jaime held Red Keep, wildfire stores secured. Cersei confined under guard. Small folk opened gates to rose dragon banners. The city, starved of hope, craved peace. Daenerys listened by flickering lantern in Castle Black's common hall, walls still trembling from recent onslaught. He begs you come, Tyrion finished. Elect council to decide her fate. He fears bloodlust if city left rudderless. Jon observed quietly, chest bandaged. Go, he told her. The north will bury dead, rebuild wall. She shook head. Not without me. You broke the night, he said. Your task here is done. A new one awaits. He glanced at Tyrion. And you must stop fire before it follows ice. At dawn, she flew south. Drogon healing slow but strong. Rhaegal accompanied, as did 300 unsullied and delegation of North Lords. Storm clouds roiled above the neck, but beyond, skies dawned gold, promise of realms reborn. She wondered what songs bards might spin, of a queen who chose mercy over throne, or fire tempered by snow. The wheel cracked this night, perhaps not shattered, but bent into new shape. She tightened cloak, felt weight of crown never yet worn. Somewhere city waited, towers high, bells silent, hearts wary. She would enter not as conqueror, but as woman who had seen world's edge and fought darkness with light. Ahead dragons rode wind as siblings, green and black, smoke trailing from their jaws, not to burn but to breathe warm into a land wounded and cold. Below, rivers shimmered free of ice, reflecting first blush of spring. The realm stirred. Broken yet alive. She whispered into rushing air. Let seed take root. And southward she flew, toward a throne overshadowed by memories of iron and blood, determined to forge it anew from mercy blazing bright as dawn fire.